sound. Hello, 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 and welcome back to That Quirky Bird Girl. I am your host, Steph, and I'm here with another podcast episode with Christine, the author of Freebird. If you are watching the video, I have her book right here in my hands, and I'll be posting in the comments of this video a photo as well as links where you can get her book. But I will hand it over to Christine if you could do a little intro for us and tell us about what you're most excited about sharing with us today.
Thank you, Steph. I'm so thrilled to be here on your podcast. I'm Christine Mott. I am a new author, but also a mom, animal law attorney, and just longtime animal advocate. And yeah, my new bird book is Free Bird, Flaco the Owl's Dreams Take Flight. And it's about our beloved, the most famous owl in the world, Flaco the owl, who I think many of your listeners may know famously escaped from the Central Park Zoo about 2 years ago and had the chance to live the best year of his life, flying free as he should all over New York City and inspiring people to become bird watchers, animal lovers, and really kind of think about our treatment of animals and especially animals, wild animals in captivity. But the book is for kids, and I think adults will also get a kick out of reading it. And I'm donating half of the proceeds of the book to the Wild Bird Fund, which is a wonderful nonprofit in the city that rescues and rehabilitates wild birds and other wildlife and then releases them back into the wild.
Oh my goodness, that's so amazing. I know you have this passion of animals. Did the connections come first for you, or was it more the experience with animals that you had?
I've, I guess, been an animal lover my whole life since I was a little kid. Just always loved animals, and um, as I grew and become more aware of the world, became unfortunately aware of how people treat animals, and just wanted to always use whatever um, advocacy, professional skills to help animals. So I am an animal law attorney, chaired the New York City Bar Association's Animal Law Committee for many years, where I did a lot of work on legal and policy efforts to develop law that will help animals in New York City, but also New York State and on a federal level. So, for example, the Wild Bird Fund has always been on my radar, and a wonderful organization that we've partnered with to kind of spread awareness on a local and policy level. What do you do if you find an injured bird? They are basically the foremost organization in the city. If someone finds an injured bird or other injured wildlife, that's who you call. And even if NYPD picks up the animal, eventually those wild animals are going to go to Wild Bird Fund because they have the expertise. These are certified wildlife rehabilitators that are going to help these animals get back on their feet or on their wings and get back into the wild where they belong. But it was really important to me to have this book be not just a book, and my goal is not to, be money or fame or fortune. My goal with the book was really to kind of plant seeds of compassion in kids that can grow into a passion for helping animals. And in every book sale, I'm hoping to plant that seed, but also give back to the community of people who are doing the good work to help animals every day, like the Wild Bird Fund.
I love that you're sort of coming back to, it sounds like maybe even your own roots in supporting animals in that way. Have you always been an animal lover, and where did that start for you?
Yeah, I think, like most people, I think most kids grow up loving animals, and I'm no different. I remember as a kid, asking my mom as I was probably eating, a burger or something, like, "What is this? What am I eating?" And being horrified to learn, that's a dead animal. When you're really little, maybe you don't have the ability to make those choices for yourself. But as I got older, I think I stopped eating animals when I was 10 years old and then became vegan when I was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. Um, and I feel like once you learn about, the horrors of, let's say, factory farming or animal testing, or you name it, all the myriad ways that animals are treated in society, it's hard not to do something with that knowledge and say, well, it stops with me. I'm not going to contribute to that as, a starting point, but then two is helping others to see that as well. So I think that's always been my goal of trying to spread awareness. And I think it can be difficult to know all these horrors and want the world to quickly like stop doing all these things, and the reality is it takes time, and for me, I think, especially now as I'm a mom, having the ability to connect with kids and teach them just those really critical, important lessons of having compassion and empathy for other beings is the start of something really important and really beautiful that will hopefully grow to help them make choices that are good for animals, that are good for our environment, good for them. And if I can be one small part in that movement, I feel like I will have accomplished a lot.
It's definitely it it's the hard work, you're sharing with the younger generation, your passion, your love, and sort of like putting that piece of you out there for them to sort of decide whether or not they want to lean more into nature or lean away from it. So have you found that like in doing your book tour and in sharing about your book that you have inspired others or inspired like across age groups?
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun, and kids are such an honest audience. So I've done a lot of story time events with kids. And after reading the book, I try to engage with them and ask them. And to me, the most important thing that I'm trying to get across is just for them to connect, their feelings with Flaco. So I'll ask them, like, what do you think? How do you think Flaco felt, when he was in,
Mhm.
flying free? How do you think he felt when he was at the zoo? And I always try to ask them, "Well, what would you have done if you were Flaco? What was a choice that you would have made?" Inevitably, everybody says, "Well, I would have wanted to be free too, like Flaco." Nobody chooses to say, I wanted to stay, in the little cage at the zoo. And to me, that's it. That is the goal of the book, is to help them connect, to say, sure, I don't have feathers and wings like an owl, but there are things that I do have in common with Flaco and perhaps other birds and other animals, and that's we can both dream, we can both have hopes for what we want in our life, and that is, I think, the most critical thing. Whether we're talking about compassion for animals or how we treat other people in society, is that ability to empathize with others and put yourself in somebody else's shoes and see the world from their perspective. Because once you do that, it informs how you are going to interact with others, whether that's a person or an animal. So yes, I mean, I hope that even if it stops right there, that ability to connect with others, I think that the book does do a good job of doing that, and I've kind of seen that, in the answers that children have given. So that's been really moving, um, and I hope that it continues to do that as I get it in the hands of more kids.
Yeah. Ugh, that's so exciting. And I think generating more excitement around birds and around animals is such valuable work. I think it's what brought us both together. I'm curious, like, about your personal journey with Flaco. It sounds like you have been able to take your relationship with animals and sort of see that through Flaco and disseminate that in your writing. So I'm curious about like your own personal journey within that.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I'm a long time animal lover, and I've been vegan and vegetarian basically at this point my whole life. And if I had to have a goal, like, I would love for tomorrow the world to decide, like, we're not going to hurt animals anymore. We're going to all be vegan and not hurt anybody. And I'm a realist and know that that's not going to happen tomorrow. But I think that with little changes, like that's always the goal. But even if it gets somebody to think about, okay, well, I'm not going to, you know, use pesticides in my lawn. I'm going to help the local wildlife in my community. I think those things can grow into hopefully what the ultimate goal is to treat all animals with love and compassion. And I really thought that having Flaco as kind of an ambassador for this ideology of love and compassion and respect for animals was something that might be able to reach people in a way that if I had written a book about, I don't know, I mean, I probably still will in the future, but a cow or a pig, and maybe people wouldn't have connected as easily because they would say, oh, well, this is a book that's just trying to make me be vegan or and not eat those animals. I think that um, well, I want people to get there. Sometimes it can be easier to start with something that maybe is less, I don't want to say judgmental, or just something that maybe people can agree on more quickly. And I think that Flaco naturally did achieve that. Um, looking back at the wonderful, I would call it an obituary of Flaco after he passed away. I remember spending so much time reading just the personal comments that people would leave um, on this article on the New York Times that recounted Flaco's life from hatching in a facility and being moved to Central Park and suffering all those years, and then his year of freedom. There were so many people that I think really connected with his story who wouldn't maybe identify as animal rights activists or, vegan, vegetarian, but they were able to connect with that principle that animals deserve freedom, love, respect, just like everybody else. And they were able to connect through that through Flaca. And to me, that was, I guess, an opportunity that I didn't want to just have it be this fleeting moment. And I wanted to kind of preserve that and Flaco's legacy live on as this ambassador that can help people connect the idea that their lives, their feelings are not so different than those that animals have. And I guess that's kind of the genesis of why I chose Flaco as the inspiration for this book. I think that I would love to, I guess, continue to see how we can have other animal characters in future books do kind of a similar role, and again in kind of a gentle, non-judgmental way that people will want to be open to at least receiving the message and do with it what they will, and hopefully make a good choice after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I could actually really identify with your mission of sort of taking small steps at getting people excited about nature again in our adult life. I feel like there's almost this like disconnect that happens for some people like in middle life where we lose touch with like the nature and with the outdoors of it all and like the animals and get so wrapped up in the day to day. And that, I'm not someone who is vegan. I have such a limited diet already. So it wouldn't necessarily be something that works for me, but I think I really, really value your excitement to get other people caring about animals.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's true, especially for adults, we can kind of take for granted, the wildlife that we have. I think especially if you're in a city, right, where
Mm.
you spend your days, subway, car, maybe you see pigeons, which I love. I love pigeons.
Love.
People, people maybe don't appreciate what they have, and I think you're right. Getting people to, I mean, just to think about birds are so incredible, right? So many birds that migrate like these thousands of miles every year. The animals that mate for life and have their life partners and are just wonderful parents. I mean, they're such amazing creatures, and I think yeah, we can go by our busy lives and not look at that and appreciate that. And I think we should. Sometimes seeing that through a child's eyes can also help maybe reinvigorate an adult's perspective too. So I hope that for the parents that read my book to their kids, maybe that would spark them to think about the wild animals in their life and to appreciate them and what you can do for them to help them and not hurt them in the very least.
Yeah. Oh, it's important work, and I'm curious, Christine, as a mom, I'm not a mom myself, so I'm I guess did being a mom and sort of seeing the way that your kids interact with nature, what impact did that have on your writing, if any?
So when I talk about animals with my kids, like when we go outside, it's Mr. Crow, Mrs. Crow. We try to be very personal with all the animals we see. We have a whole farm of monarch caterpillars right now in our yard. I had to rush off yesterday and go buy them more milkweed because they had chowed it down so quickly. So I like to be very, I like to connect with them and help them connect too. So, what those animals are thinking, what their needs are, how we should treat them. Um, and so I guess, the tone and the way of writing that I have in the book is really similar to how I talk with my kids. And I think it's good because it helps them understand like these, whether it's a bird, a caterpillar, they're individuals. Again, they have needs that kids can identify with, right? They don't want to be, we have to be careful if we hold a caterpillar. We don't want to squeeze them, give them a boo-boo. Um, so they understand that they have bodies and feelings like we do. And if you can teach that to a kid, as a young child, that's something, it becomes a core understanding of them, and again, how they grow up and then ultimately become, parents or caregivers, or inspire others in their lives. To hopefully it becomes a whole chain of compassion.
Yeah. And it all starts with one person just believing that they can like disseminate that message. So I think that's beautiful that you do that for your children and then do it again in your book.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I try to include other characters too. I have Flaco, talking with the sparrows. Um, in one of the scenes, there's with the page, and I'll give a shout out to my illustrator, Ofra Isler, who just did such an incredible job bringing the images to life. I have an image of a poor horse who's pulling a carriage in New York City, and another long exploited species. My goal was really to help um, kids, not just it's about Flaco, but it's really kind of opening their eyes to all the other animals, right? Yeah, there's the cute little sparrow, which is probably another overlooked bird where people are just like, it's just a little house sparrow. They're not exciting. Well, they are. I mean, they can do such incredible things. They're also fun to watch, right? I tried to have, I'm gonna find the page at the zoo with all the animals dreaming. Um,
Uh, I
you
think it's
know, when
14.
we have Flaco depicted in the zoo, I show other animals in cages that are nearby, and they're all doing what Flaco is doing. They're dreaming. We have Flaco dreaming, wishing, he's flying free in the mountains, and I have a gorilla, depicted who's lonely in a cage, and she's dreaming about what it would be like to raise her family, in the jungle, and the tiger wishing that, he could be free, and the hippo. So, again, the idea is to help kids, not just, think of animals as just like, oh, you know, the hippo that lives, in the zoo, helping them to remind them that these are wild animals, and, that is the native habitat they came from, and where frankly they should be. But helping them remember that these animals, again, that we have things that are not similar. We have a lot of things that are similar, and that the most basic of that is feelings.
I almost like as we were looking through the book, for those of you that aren't watching the video right now, you can check it out on YouTube, but along with links to Christine's book. But we were just looking through some pages and I know you mentioned the illustrator. I wanted to just call out how like almost disseminated the language is in the illustrations because the way that Flaco is depicted is just so kind. Like, and I think oftentimes when you think about owls, and the age I was growing up in, owls were featured a lot in horror movies. And so having that frame around owls almost makes it something like ominous, scary. But this is just like, it's completely reframing all of that, at least for me, but just, it's very kind, like kind colors, kind illustrations. And I feel like you can almost feel that Flaco's just a bird that has a dream.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. He was. And that's something that every kid has a dream, every person has a dream, right? So that was, I guess there's, you can look at the book as having two messages. And the first, most obvious is, it's about having a dream, and, how hard it can seem to, have the dream, and it might feel impossible, and how in the world am I going to achieve it? But the importance of having that, nurturing that dream, and then the hard work that goes into it, right? So in the book, we follow Flaco after he escapes, and as we've been discussing, he lives in a cage where he could never fly, so he didn't know how to fly. Flaco in real life had to teach himself how to fly. He had to build up the muscle tone to be able to fly. So at first he could only go short distances. In the book I have, him being taught by the sparrows how to fly, but inspired by real life that he did have to learn and kind of have that adversity. He also, as a captive owl, he didn't know how to feed himself. He had been fed, I'm sure either live or dead rats that were just put into his cage, and there you go. When Flaco escaped, that was something else that he had to learn to, be an owl and learn to hunt and find food. And it took him a little time, but he did. He was able to fend for himself, and he ended up, going on such amazing exploits. There are amazing photos of Flaco all over the city after he kind of was brave enough and strong enough to expand his range. People saw him on their windowsills. He was spotted in a sculpture garden. He made his way to Fifth Avenue near Bergdorf Goodman's and, the plaza. He did so many amazing things that just, were incredible to watch for anybody, bird watchers, or just, anybody interested in his story. But it goes back to the whole idea of following your dream and hopefully teaching kids that, one, it's important to have a dream and follow up with it. And there's all the hard work that goes into it, right? And if you do all those things, that's how you achieve the dream. So I think that's the first and foremost message. And then of course the message that's underneath that we've been talking about is this idea of kind of planting a seed of compassion and helping kids connect with the emotions of Flaco in having them understand, Flaco had a dream, I had a dream, and we get each other, right? And then, hopefully transferring that to other animals in their life. And so hopefully when kids go out and see a pigeon or a sparrow, they can learn that, as I teach my kids, like, we shouldn't chase them, like, let's be kind, let's go out and feed them seeds. Like, what can we do that would be a kind way to interact with animals, because they don't want to be scared, just like we wouldn't be scared.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that. I see so many kids now like running around and chasing the pigeons, and it always breaks my heart. And I never know what the right thing is to do or say. And usually the thing that I do is I just watch it happen. But it sounds like you've both raised two intelligent children and loving animal loving children that don't necessarily uh, participate in that. Have you have you noticed that like other kids that your kids maybe interact with are picking up on what you've taught your children as well?
Yeah, my kids, they both know, they're ages 7.5 and almost 4, and they both know, like, they don't eat animals, that it's important to, be kind to animals, not step on them. If we find a spider in the house, we get a little cup and we bring the spider outside. So they know, like, that's the expectation. And I think that inevitably that rubs off on their friends and kids that they interact with, and that's a great thing. To your point about, witnessing kids. Kids, naturally, unless they're told and given those values, like, they don't know that they maybe shouldn't chase the birds, or, take the caterpillar home and live in their bedroom. They have to be taught those things. So I have no problem if I see kids on the playground, trying to step on a bug, like, in a gentle way, go and tell them, like, hey, like, that animal, like, how would you feel? That animal has feelings. Like, let's let him go. And sometimes, if those kids aren't getting that home, you can be the person in their life that gently, clues them into that. So I think there's, it takes a village, as they say. So maybe next time you see kids doing that, I think there is a gentle way, and I think it is appropriate to let them know, like, hey, why don't you next time bring some bird seed for the birds? That's scaring the birds instead of chasing them, and that's a big deal. It's a less, I think, a core lesson that the kids need to learn. Um, there's that famous quote, teaching a kid not to step on a caterpillar is as important for the child as it is for the caterpillar. It's such a lesson in, again, compassion and empathy and being able to connect, um, which is critical. Kids that do engage in, abusive behaviors towards animals, like, statistics show that leads to harm in other ways to society, whether that's interpersonal violence, harming themselves. Like it's, again, to the point of that quote, it's benefiting all of society to teach kids to be kind to animals.
I guess I didn't consider that from that perspective. I'm the oldest of five, and
Funny,
I
me too.
think, oh, are you really?
That's so
Oh,
funny.
wow. Here in New York?
So yeah, two of my siblings are still in the city. I have one sibling in the Upper East and one in Brooklyn. But yeah, I'm oldest of five. Thank you. That's so funny.
Wow, I have not met a one of five. Actually, I've never met someone who's the oldest of five as well.
And yeah, oldest daughter, yeah, that's a whole other, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So you kind of know what it is to have to like lead people in a direction of like care and kindness and empathy. And it sounds like you very much brought that in and trickled that into every area of your life. I mean, from legal surrounding animals and supporting them and getting and having the care that they deserve, to then also raising your family and trickling down values from your kids into their friend groups. And then in your book, I mean, how does it feel to kind of look back and know that your values truly are the way that you're living your life?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel good. I always felt like that, maybe it is a combination of just, being an animal lover, but also the whole oldest daughter syndrome. You feel like, well, okay, somebody's got to do it. So I got to do something, right? So I'm doing my part, and if I didn't, I would, I would feel terrible. Like that, I think we all need to use, our lives, our abilities to, I mean, what other is the point of life, right? To kind of leave the world a better place for everybody else. And yeah, I think it definitely makes you feel good to be able to look back and say, well, I did all I can to achieve those things. And I guess also that, oldest daughter, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to, probably write more books. And, we do what we can. And I'm hoping to teach that to my kids too.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you practice yoga, but my yoga instructor always leaves a note, or leaves us with a note of like, do what you can and love what you do.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
beautiful. I love that.
yeah, I love it. Well, Christine, thank you so much for being on here with me and for chatting about your book. And we talked a little bit about where you can find your book. So for those of you that are more international and maybe not based out of New York, you can find Christine's book, Freebird, Flaco, the Owl's Dreams Take Flight. Find it across Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And then if you're based in New York, you can also find her book on the Upper East Side at Corner Books, and then also in Brooklyn at Greenlight. Yeah, and Christine, if there's anywhere else that you'd like to add in between that, or where my followers can find you to continue learning about more what that you're sharing and next steps for you, feel free to share that.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to chat with you. I love meeting a fellow bird lover and oldest of five. That's so fun. Yeah, you follow me on Instagram. You can find me at Christine Mott, ESQ. And stay tuned. I hope to publish more through my wonderful publisher, Lantern Publishing and Media. They do a lot of great books in the just general animal protection category. So they've been wonderful. And if you want to check out the Wild Bird Fund, they do such amazing work. And for all the New Yorkers out there, if you don't already know about Wild Bird Fund, they are the go-to place if you find injured wildlife. But they also have great info on like when a bird does not need help, when it's a fledgling, like learning, so don't kidnap birds and all that. But they're a wonderful organization for you to check out if you don't already know about them.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Christine, and best of luck. I know you mentioned you have the rest of your book tour, so best of luck on that, and I hope we get to share more on your next books.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here.